Fedor Emelianenko is one of the most respectful, humble, stand-up fighters that we've ever seen. But what if I told you that his blood brother, who was basically raised in the same house as Fedor, is not only the complete opposite of him, but I'd go a step further and say that he's one of the most dysfunctional, degenerate people to ever step foot in an octagon. Now, to understand how that even happens, we have to go back to the mid-1990s. At that point, Fedor had just graduated from trade school and was forced to join the Russian military, meaning he was going to be gone for the next 2 years. Now, shortly after Fedor left, their parents got divorced, and their father moved out of the house, leaving Alexander and the other kids completely alone with their mother. Now, their mother worked extremely long hours, and because of that, Alexander had basically zero supervision. And he absolutely took advantage of it, spending most of his time getting into fights and turning into what's basically the Russian version of a hooligan. Even before all that, he was already a troublemaker. But once his big brother was gone and his dad was nowhere to be found, he felt completely unstoppable, and he ended up getting as deep into the streets as you'd expect from an unsupervised problem child. So Fedor returns from the military 2 years later, but by that point, his brother was already too far gone. Now, this is where things start to get a little shaky, because now we have to do some actual investigative work. Because in 2008, Fedor did an interview where he completely unprovoked mentioned that his brother had already served 3.5 years of a 5-year prison sentence. And I'm 100% inclined to believe Fedor, not only because he's not known for lying, but also because Alexander has multiple prison and gang-related tattoos that back up the claim. At the time, though, not much was known about Alexander, so nobody really paid too much attention to it. It wasn't until much later, once people started to really see who Alexander actually was, that all these little details began to click and paint a much clearer picture. Now, Alexander's first official MMA fight took place in October 2003, so if the prison story is true, which I'm assuming it is, that would mean that he was arrested and sentenced sometime around 1998 or 1999, and then spent roughly 3.5 years behind bars. And in my opinion, all of this happening at such a young age probably caused a lot of emotional and psychological damage, the kind you don't just grow out of. So after his release, Alexander tried to do what everyone expected of him, to fight. And in 2004, he even got married and then went on to have a daughter. But even during the moments where it looked like he was doing well, there was always an underlying issue that nobody really understood the severity of at the time, and that was his alcohol addiction. In 2011, Alexander and his wife got divorced, and from that point on, his whole life just went to shit. His downfall officially starts in December 2012, when Alexander was on an airplane and decided he needed a cigarette mid-flight. Now, obviously, the passengers and flight attendants told him to put it out, and that didn't sit well with him, and he ended up having a violent outburst. Now, here's the part that you need to pay attention to. What he did was not a minor offense. Under normal circumstances, that absolutely would have resulted in jail time. But somehow, Alexander walked away with nothing more than a $23 fine. And despite getting off easy, it didn't take long for him to end up in trouble again. Because in August of 2013, he was accused of sexually assaulting a college student. Police had responded to the scene at the time, but for reasons that were never made public, the alleged victim later withdrew the claim. And once again, Alexander faced zero consequences. At this point, you'd probably think that he would have learned his lesson, but it was becoming clear that this was only the beginning, because later that same year, he was arrested for getting super drunk and physically assaulting multiple people, including a 63-year-old man. But once again, he got lucky. The 63-year-old man ultimately withdrew the charges, leaving Alexander a free man. So let's recap what happened within roughly just a 2-year period. He caused a violent scene on an airplane, he was accused of sexually assaulting a college student, and he physically attacked multiple people, including an elderly man. For all of that, the only punishment that he received was a $23 fine. It genuinely started to feel like no matter what he did, he was never going to face real consequences. And a lot of people believe that that had everything to do with his last name. But that illusion completely shattered in March of 2014, because that's when Alexander was arrested for sexual assault again, except this time, there was substantial evidence and the victim refused to drop the charges. Once Alexander was found guilty for the irredeemable crime that he committed, Fedor had no choice but to let him go. Now, Alexander would go on to spend just over 2 years in prison, which, if you ask me, is still nothing compared to what he actually did. And during that entire period, Fedor didn't visit him a single time. He didn't make excuses for his brother, he didn't defend him, and he didn't stay silent either. He publicly disowned him and said that to him, his brother was dead. So Alexander was released from prison in November 2016, but something really important happened just 1 month before that we need to keep in mind. There is a man named Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of Chechnya, and many people, for very good reason, consider him an unhinged and brutal dictator. Now, in October of that same year, Kadyrov organized an MMA event that involved children fighting. And as you'd expect, the backlash he got was pretty immediate. Even Fedor spoke out publicly, saying that what Kadyrov did was wrong. And apparently that didn't sit well with Kadyrov, because not long after Fedor made those comments, Fedor's daughter was randomly attacked and hospitalized. Now, even though no one was officially charged, let's be real, everybody understood exactly what that message was and who it came from. And the worst part is that there was absolutely nothing Fedor could do. This wasn't some local thug. This was an actual warlord that was known for making people disappear. So when Alexander was released from prison, what happened next shocked everybody. He was suddenly seen training with Ramzan Kadyrov. And if that wasn't bad enough, Alexander gave an on-the-record interview where he said that Kadyrov was more of a brother to him than Fedor ever was. And that was the final straw. Fedor had tried to forgive him, but this crossed the line that could never be undone. He made a public statement shortly after about Alexander, and that was the last time he ever publicly spoke about him. He said, "Usually I don't comment on other people's statements, but I cannot remain silent. This is my first and last answer to you. I consider it beneath my dignity to constantly react to your lies." And now the most important thing, why I decided to make this open appeal to you. You called my relatives sycophants. Sycophant, that's you, Judas. I feel sorry that people who were close to you and supported you in hard moments are now suffering. I personally have apologized for you to dozens of people. You can say what you like about me, I'll endure it, but do not dare to insult those close to me. Besides, you don't even know them, and all those whom you know helped you and played an important role in your life, you are not worth their little finger. Therefore, you are not in my circle. In one of your interviews, you said that you can help me, but I do not understand how you, someone who was released from prison not long ago and is known for constant violations of his training regime, can help me. I can only think of one thing, not to dishonor the family name of me and my parents. And after that, the brothers never spoke again. Fedor went on to live the life that he truly deserved. He remained one of the most respected figures in MMA history, and to this day, you'd be hard-pressed to find a single person who has a bad thing to say about him. He's now coaching, living a peaceful, humble life, and cashing in on the respect that he earned over the decades. On the other hand, Alexander's life stayed on the exact same trajectory. Every time it looked like he might finally be doing better, he would find a way to completely mess it up. At one point after his prison stint, he actually went on a 5-fight win streak, all by knockout. And for a small moment, it looked like maybe his story could end differently. But in 2019, he was involved in a DUI after crashing into 2 cars. Then the following year, he was arrested again after another drunken disorderly incident. Since then, he's been in and out of jail repeatedly. People waited for redemption. What they got instead was confirmation that this behavior was never a phase. This is who he was this whole time. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any sympathy whatsoever for how Alexander turned out, because in my opinion, as tough as his childhood was, Fedor is living proof that those circumstances don't necessarily turn you into a monster. If anything, they can mold you into a great human being. And I personally think that Alexander is just a horrible person who was given chance after chance to fix himself. Chances that most people would never get. And every time he got away with something, it only reinforced the idea in his head that he was untouchable. I also think that Alexander is 100% wrong about everything that happened between him and Fedor. Because if it wasn't for Fedor being an absolute legend in MMA and one of the most respected people in the sport, Alexander would have never been given those opportunities in the first place. And the hard truth is that without his brother Fedor, none of us would even know who this guy is. So yeah, thank you so much if you made it this far. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Take it easy, my friends. Until next time.